Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of Orange Weekly After Dark. Lots to talk about today, guys. Injuries, performance, where we move forward, all of that stuff. As usual, go ahead and drop your comments, any questions you have into the chat, and we will get this conversation rolling. On top of that, feel free to hit that share button. The more people can bring in, the more conversation we're going to have and the more fun it will be. After the first 2 weeks, I think Broncos fans are in some need of some fun. So, again, obviously the number one story, not only with the Broncos, but across the league, really are injuries the first 2 weeks, especially injuries that occurred yesterday. And unfortunately, the Broncos have taken a huge hit of that, among the worst of the league. Obviously, the biggest one that's season ending is Cortland Sutton. Was confirmed today that he does have an ACL tear and will, in fact, miss the rest of the season. On top of that, Drew Lock, not the worst news in the world, but certainly not great news by any means. They're predicting him to miss 2 to 6 weeks with a shoulder injury with his throwing shoulder. On top of that, Draymond Jones, a PCL tear, expect him to miss around 4 weeks. And on top of that, obviously, we have the lingering issues. Obviously, Philip Lindsay's week to week. Von Miller, we've known about, likely to miss at least a large chunk of the season, if not all of it. AJ Bouye, he's a few weeks away. They put him on IR last week, meaning he has at least 2 more games on IR. And I have not received updates quite yet on Devontae Harris and DeMarcus Walker, also injured. So again, a banged up team. Real quick, Kara, looks like you were calling in from Brasilia, which is awesome. Love to have you. And Jose, yeah, I agree. All bad news. This season has obviously not started the way that not only we hoped for, but expected to. Obviously, 0-2 to start with. Some people, might have predicted that going against 2 very talented teams to start with. Again, Titans and Steelers are no easy matchups. But again, the worst part about all that is not necessarily the 0-2 start, but more so the injuries that have occurred from those first 2 games that are going to have massive effects moving down the road. And Jose, all I hear is 4th place. Yeah, we're in 4th place right now, and it's going to be a hole to dig out of. Obviously, Kansas City's rolling. The Chargers are 1-1, I believe now, and the Raiders pulled off a big upset against the Saints tonight, making them 2-0. So that leaves us in last place. So yeah, a hole to dig out of. Where we go from here is really anyone's guess and up for debate. Obviously we've got people calling for Fangio's job, which we'll get into in a little bit. Obviously, do we start replacing these people who are injured? Do we just try to promote guys from within? Or where do we go from here? So I would like to hear your comments for sure. So go ahead, post what you think about our coaching situation, our injury situation, and what you think. We got the Bucks coming for the next game, and Tom Brady obviously is never an easy game to play. So real quick, mask fine. We can get into if it's a joke or not. It's an expensive bill, that's for sure. After watching the Monday Night Football game, I would expect that fine to also hit the Saints and the Raiders. So Clinton, thanks for joining us. Bad coaching. I'm not convinced on that one myself. I want to make sure I speak on behalf of myself here at Orange Weekly here. We had a nice debate earlier within the Orange Weekly staff. And there's some debate, whether it's a coaching problem. If it's not, I personally don't think so. Obviously we can go back to week 1 where we didn't use our timeouts. Sure, coaching error on that one. However, I think a lot of this falls on the players. If we go back to week 1, Jerry Jeudy doesn't drop that big pass towards the end of the game, we can run out the clock at that point. Basically, we're not having to punt and then allow the Titans come down, kick that field goal, and put us in that bad position. And this week we fought back. We were down 17-3 at half, and I think most teams in the NFL would have just collapsed at that point. You're missing your QB1, your top wide receiver, your not second running back, your 1.5 running back, if you will, your top 2 defenders, all these kinds of injuries. And they fought back. They made it a game. And 4th and 2, big play at the end of the game, and we can't even get the pass off because our offensive line let up I think it was like the 8th sack of the game. And so, from where I'm looking, guys, coaches can only do so much, right? And I personally don't think they're in a position where they're costing games. I think they're actually doing their job as coaches and putting the team in a position of success, and allowing the team to win games. However, the players are not executing on their end. And, I touched on it a bit last week. At the end of the day, these players have to learn how to win these close games. It's not just enough to be in these close games against top teams. You have to make that extra step. Somebody needs to step up leadership wise. Somebody needs to catch a pass at the right time or block at the right time, whatever it is. Someone needs to step up and start making those big time plays that you see successful teams do, right? You can look across the league at, these successful teams, whether it's the Seahawks, the Chiefs, these teams that are Super Bowl contenders this year, they're winning close games by making the right play at the right time. And I think that's where the Broncos need to head to. I don't think it's a coaching issue at this point necessarily. I think it's more so on the players to start making those clutch plays. You can't coach clutch. And that's something that we are missing. Quick break from that discussion. I just want to, Jose, thanks for joining us. Asking where we all live. The Orange Weekly staff is all over the place. We've got, myself, I'm up in Seattle, deep in Seahawks territory. We've got people in Colorado, California. We're all over the place, but we all represent Broncos, obviously. And we started this because we were all over the place and still wanted to feel we were part of the Bronco fandom. And so that's why this is all created for the fans, by the fans. So we appreciate you guys being here with us. And then back to some coaching, Jose. Like, injured key players is never good for success. And I think that's another huge point to bring up, right? How many coaches in the NFL are going to have successful seasons with, again, all those injuries that I just talked about? And it's not so much just the sheer number of the injuries, which, mind you, is a lot. It's who is getting hurt, right? It's our top players right now. It's our key players, that leadership offensively and defensively, that are taking the brunt of these injuries. And, it's one thing if you're, your third cornerback or your third running back sustain these injuries. It's another if, again, your first quarterback, your wide receiver 1, your running back 1.5, your first cornerback, whatever it is, it's our top guys that are sustaining these injuries. And at a certain point, not to necessarily make excuses, but man, we're already a very young team. A lot of players are making either their first start from this past week or it was their second start. Even Sutton, who is considered one of the veterans on this team, it's only his third season. And, so when you start losing those veterans, whether it's a true veteran like Von Miller or even your veteran in the sense that Sutton is considered a veteran right now, man, it gets tough, and you can only game plan so much for injuries, right? So I'm excited to see what Fangio draws up for this next week. Again, Brady is a huge challenge, whether he's in a Patriots uniform or a Bucs uniform, as he showed this past week. it's going to be a huge challenge for sure. So we'll be interested to see what happens. Jose, back to you. Hope Chubb can get in his groove fast. We need turnovers and sacks to help the offense. And I think that's another outstanding point. Um, there's a lot of heat being thrown at our cornerbacks after this game against the Steelers. And they might not have had their best game. Again, it's a very young cornerback core at the moment. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. We haven't had much of a pass rush going at all. And, obviously, a huge part of that is the loss of Von Miller. He provides that leadership and expertise in his position. But you're right, Chubb still hasn't quite gotten back into his groove, which isn't necessarily surprising, I would say. I would say that the microscope is more on him because, Miller's out. And so Reed hasn't really stepped up quite yet either. He made a couple plays, a couple QB rushes. I think he batted down a pass this past week, but you're right. We haven't won a turnover battle yet. We haven't helped our offense much either. The defense isn't helping themselves. They're staying out on the field way too long, and at that point, wearing themselves out, getting tired towards the end of the game. What else do we got here, guys? The interception changed the moment so they can make big plays, just to capitalize on it. And again, that's where I go back. We got to come up with those clutch plays. That's the difference right now between a young team who's learning this and experienced teams who know how to win these close games. Broncos aren't quite there yet. I think we're close. Don't get me wrong. You look across the league, and again, you have teams like the Jets who are so far away from, any type of success, where they're years and years removed from being contenders. Broncos, I think, are on the cusp. They really are. I think it's a young team learning very hard lessons right now that really you can only learn the hard way, as unfortunate as it is. And again, we go back to a healthy team. And I still say this is a playoff team. One of our staff members, Ray, he brought up the point today amongst our staff that, is this a rebuild team or is it a playoff team? And, my response again is when healthy. If we had at least half of these guys healthy that are injured right now, I still say we're a playoff team. 0-2 doesn't look too scary to me. Obviously it's going to be a tough couple weeks. Got the Bucks coming up, which obviously will be tough. And then we have a quick turnaround. I think it's against the Jets. So, yeah, that should be an easier opponent. However, those quick turnaround weeks are always hard, especially when you're already beat up. And again, not to mention, those big names that we're missing. So it's going to be tough. And with these injuries, I don't think we're quite at the point of throwing in the towel yet. Because again, we are only two games deep in the season. It's a long season still. At the same time, though, we're in a bad place. In a bad place. Lots of more questions than answers right now, which is not what you want necessarily 2 weeks into a season. In a season that you expected to be at least making the playoffs, which right now, again, 2 weeks in, but uphill battle to climb for sure. Real quick, guys, I want to take just a quick second and again remind you of all the content we have coming at you on a weekly basis. Tomorrow night, be sure to join us on our main flagship show. It's going to be great. It starts at 7, Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS, as you see right there on the bottom of the screen. Fun conversations. It's a great time, great show. It's a lot like this, just with more people around. So definitely join in. Again, it's always a fun conversation. Again, we love these interactions with fellow Broncos fans. So be sure to tune in tomorrow night. Again, for Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS. And on top of that, again, we've got podcasts coming out to you guys every week. So make sure you are following us on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're at it, give us a good rating. Help us out a little bit there. We've got pregame shows, we have halftime shows. We've got it all for you. So keep checking our content out. We really appreciate the support you guys have given us over the years, especially this year, especially during some years where we might not have been necessarily as successful as we necessarily are used to having as Broncos fans. Again, please keep supporting us, checking our content out, and again, helping us out any way you can. Jose, we use this is we've tried out different platforms. This is StreamYard. I think it's a great way to really interact with you guys. You say that you like it, we like it even more. This whole thing is, again, for the fans. We enjoy talking to you guys, getting your thoughts. We got kind of tired of the usual status quo, shall we say, of podcasts and what have you, where you're paying just to read an article, or the podcast, it's nothing but podcasts. And so you don't get your own thoughts, and you're just hearing people talk at you. And so, we figure this way, it's at least a bit more fun for everybody. Again, we get to interact with other Broncos fans. You get to put your thoughts out there. Let us know what you think about anything on any given week. And so again, please keep posting any questions, comments you have, and we'll keep rolling. So Jose, is IR way too soon to call for a lock? I think so. And I think that the main reason behind it is if you put someone on IR, they have to miss 3 weeks. Right now, the hope is Locke could be back after 2 weeks, which again is we have a quick turnaround, so it's almost guaranteed 2 weeks. But then we have a longer break in between the Jets and the following week. So the hope is he'll be back for that following week, best case scenario. So I think it's a little too soon to place him on IR. That being said, I wouldn't rule it out either. Again, it's his throwing shoulder, which obviously as a quarterback, any injury to that throwing shoulder is going to be harder to recover from. It's going to take a little bit more time. I've read a couple of different reports, so honestly, I'm not 100% sure what the injury is right now. I have read both. It's an AC sprain. I've also read it's a rotator cuff strain. Maybe it's even both. Either way, those are two very challenging injuries for a quarterback to deal with. Obviously Sutton missed week 1 with a grade 1 AC sprain. But even if that is what Drew Lock has, it's a different position. It's much harder when it's your throwing shoulder. You can't really get a lot of power behind your throws. So obviously something you need as a quarterback. Again, whether it's an AC sprain or a rotator cuff strain, it's going to be a little bit of time for Locke to come back, at least to an extent where he's able to throw with the power and actually that he tends to try to throw with. So we'll see. We definitely won't know more for at least 2 weeks. At that point, I think that they plan on reevaluating the injury and seeing where he's at. Maybe at that point they throw him on IR if they think it's going to be another few weeks. But I think at the time being, the plan is not to put him on IR. Armani, thank you for joining us tonight. Asking who do you think they will pull to be at QB2? It's an interesting question. Part of the issue with some of this COVID stuff with the protocols is to say we were to sign a quarterback right now with all the protocols it takes and the time it takes. Best case, he wouldn't be in the facility able to partake in team meetings or practice till Saturday. So obviously that doesn't help us out for Sunday's game. And again, with that quick turnaround against the Jets, that pretty much rules any other new quarterback coming in to help us out within the next couple of weeks. So it's looking almost for certain we're going to ride our number 2 and 3 quarterback right now. Obviously with Driscoll probably being the likely named starter for the next couple of weeks. I don't know if we get anybody different. I know that the coaching staff are brainstorming. They're looking into signing somebody new. From where I'm looking at, it's we signed somebody. They're not here for 2 weeks anyways, and we might have locked back for that third week. At that point, we're just throwing money away for somebody to sit on the bench and then for us to cut. So I don't believe it's Freeman. So again, Driscoll will be the starter, and blanking on his name, I'm sorry, Ripien will be QB3. So won't be Freeman. Fortunately, we can keep him to his normal duties, as we will definitely need him as well. Something I thought was really lacking in the Steelers game that I thought ended up really hurting us was our lack of the run game. It's Gordon looked pretty solid in week 1 after the fumble, and then after against the Steelers, he had a hard time getting things rolling. I think total we rushed for just over 100 yards throughout the entire game, and I think that's why at the end of the game, when it was 3rd and 2 and then 4th and 2, we ended up passing it twice, because I think that at that point we had proven our run game wasn't going to get it done. Our run game wasn't able to get 2 yards in 2 attempts, and I think that's a fair assumption for the coaching staff to make after the game that they were having. And so we're going to have to find a way, especially without Locke, we're going to have to find a way to establish a run game against teams moving forward. Keep the teams a bit honest, keep our offense on the field, give our defense a bit more of a rest. But that's going to be a huge component, bigger right now these next few weeks without Locke than maybe it was heading into the first 2 weeks of the season. Let's see, Jose, back to you. What do you think about Elway's business decisions, just about paying players and moves in the draft? I think he's good on decisions on picks, but not on paying players. That's a great conversation as well. He has gotten much, much better with his draft picks. That was obviously one of his notable Achilles heels as early in his business decisions. I think he has drastically improved on that. Again, looking more at the character of who he's drafting, more so than just their skill level or the stat lines, which I think has gone a long way. He does see his biggest critique past couple seasons now has been he's signed some risky free agents with some potential upside, but high injury risk factors. Again, a lot of people are calling for Elway after these 2 losses. I don't think that's anywhere near the case right now. I think Elway is continuing to put together a solid team. Still missing some pieces, but again, keep in mind we are very young right now and learning. And so I think we're still, a year removed from being a very serious contender. But I do think his decisions over the past, I would say 2, maybe arguably 3 years minus Vance Joseph, have been setting this team back in the right direction. Unfortunately, how it goes in professional sports, especially in the NFL, where there's no farm systems at all, is once you start going downwards, it is very hard and takes a long time to gain that traction again and put together a competitive team. There's cases all over the NFL that show that, whether you're looking at the Bills, who are finally turning that corner after years and years of not being great. You have the Jets, who have been terrible for quite some time. Obviously, the Browns come to mind, the Lions. There's a whole long list. And I think Elway has done a good job of keeping this team from spiraling to that point. I think we're really following the pathway that the 49ers had starting a couple seasons ago, where, introduced the new coach, Kyle Shanahan came in. They were 6-10 that first season. Second season, things started to look better until, what do you know, their entire team got injured, including their starting quarterback, and they actually went 4-12 that second season. And then their third season was last year, where, hey, they're in the Super Bowl. Am I saying that we're going to be in the Super Bowl next year? Obviously not going to say that at this point. However, I do think we're trending in the right direction. I think the moves we are seeing are kind of following that blueprint that we saw the 49ers lay out, and hopefully it pays dividends. Again, the injuries are hurting us this year. It's hurting our development. At the same time, these rookies, they're going to get some great experience this year. Nothing like baptism by fire, and a lot of our rookies and even second year players are going to be getting a lot more playing time than they might have thought they were going to get a couple weeks ago. So we'll see what happens. Armani, yeah, back to that run game. Freeman looking overall better. I agree. He has stepped up a bit now that he's being called on. And I agree Gordon needs to step up. Obviously, that week 1 fumble hurt. Again, I thought he looked better after that fumble. However, he was pretty absent against the Steelers. I think only 70-ish yards. Correct me if I'm wrong if somebody wants to look this up, but 70-some yards and I think it was like 20 attempts or so. Not a great stat line for your RB1 to have, especially in a game where your starting quarterback gets hurt, and you know that as soon as the starting quarterback gets hurt, the running backs have to elevate their game. That's the only way that you're going to win that. And again, I think that's what one of the causes that ultimately bit us in the end of that game. Jose, I'm so sorry. That's I'll just say you need to invest in New Jersey there. Great to have your last name, but let's get some good vibes going. Let's get Von Miller on there. Let's get Drew Lock. Let's get a jersey to get some good vibes. Like you said, great to have a jersey with the last name and not have it customized. I wouldn't know with my last name being Dandino. Not too many Dandinos in the NFL these days. But you're right. I guess it might save some money on the customization. But I think with Christmas coming up in a few months, might be time to ask Santa for a new jersey with maybe, again, Drew Lock or somebody that will hopefully be around for quite some while. Armani agrees that is pretty sweet, though, to have that jersey. We're going to start wrapping things up, guys. So, again, feel free to post any last thoughts, questions you have. Again, with another loss, unfortunately, we have to wait at least another week to award our season's first Orange Weekly After Dark Mile High salute. So, unfortunately, can't take recommendations this week for that either. So, we'll have to wait another week. Let's see, Armani. Play calls. It's that's a loaded question. I feel like it's. I think they're improved from last year. I think Scangarello was a terrible offensive coordinator. I think what we've got this year is better. Still some question marks for sure. We'll see. Part of it's just a new offense. I think defensively, again, the defensive schemes are there. I don't think that's an issue necessarily. I think it just takes some time to, again, it's a brand new offense coordinator for us. It takes a few weeks, especially without a preseason. Again, you got to keep that in mind too, right? All these factors, these guys haven't had a preseason. And when you have a new offensive coordinator with no preseason, start working out those kinks in the playbook, all of a sudden you're working out those kinks in the regular season when games matter. So I don't have a ton of complaints myself. I don't think we're doing nearly as bad as we were necessarily as, again, Scangarello. Always room for improvement. I think the special teams need some work. I have not been impressed at all on special team decision making or execution. Obviously, the special teams disaster that occurred last game that hurt us for sure. Special teams, I think, is our weakest point right now, and that needs to be addressed moving forward. Or we're definitely going to lose some more games because of special teams. You're saying what I've seen, that O-line has been way better, still needs work, but still way better. I'll say this. Garrett Bowles has by far impressed me more than anybody else on this roster so far. He did have a holding penalty last game. At the end of the day, he's still an offensive lineman. Holding calls will happen throughout the course of the season. If he averages one holding call every 2 games, I will be okay with that compared to what he's had in previous seasons. That being said, I agree to a point. I thought they looked great against the Titans as an offensive line. I thought they looked pretty terrible against the Steelers. Again, I think they allowed 8 sacks, at least 7. And that can't happen if you want to win games, especially, again, when you're on your second quarterback. And so they're going to need to find a way to protect Driscoll way better. He's not as mobile as Locke, so he can't get out of situations as well as Locke does. And so they're going to have to buy Driscoll a lot more time, and they're going to have to do that by blocking a lot better. So we'll see what they have in store. And last one, Armani. People are jumping from our team. It's a bummer, but it is what it is. You know what? Like you said, it is what it is. Unfortunately, when your team goes through a rough patch like the Broncos have over the years, it happens. And at that point, you're left with the true fans, and that's why we're here. We appreciate you coming on and giving us your thoughts and chatting with me during the late hours of Monday evening. The true fandom is where it's at, right? And honestly, when the Broncos win their next Super Bowl, hopefully within the next 3-4 years, it just makes it that much better, because you know that you were one of the fans that stuck through it from start to finish. We're part of the process right now. Obviously, I think the worst days are behind us. I think we're getting better. I think we're on the right track. The record might not show it right now. But again, injury years happen. And unfortunately, in a year where the first 2 weeks injury seems to be the status quo amongst the league, the Broncos are taking it the hardest. Arguably, maybe the 49ers as well. But, 49ers and the Broncos dealing with very heavy injuries to very key players. And it's going to be a battle. I will say I was very impressed with the character of the team. Again, fighting back down 17-3 without your star players. To me, that shows buy-in of the coach, that the players are still bought into what the coach and the coaching staff are saying and doing. And again, I think it's a gut check. Yeah, I'm not a huge moral victory kind of guy. At the end of the day, we're still 0-2. They don't award wins for moral victories. I will say, though, that if the Broncos can come out with the character and the fight and the grit that they had in that second half against the Steelers, who are arguably a Super Bowl contender this year, we're going to win more games than people are giving us credit for right now. I think we can beat the Bucs. It's not going to be easy. But again, if we show that fight and they play for the players that are injured, they play for Von Miller, they play for Locke. We can go down the entire list of all 50 names that are injured right now. I think they have a chance against Brady and the Bucs. I really do. I think that would be a huge win, not just, of course, season-wise, but just confidence-wise, too, for this team. I think we'll get a few people to get off Fangio's back, because, again, I don't think the losses are on him right now. I think it's those clutch plays we're just missing right now. So, like you said, these times of chunks of time for teams, people will jump off. They'll abandon ship. They'll go cheer for the Kansas City Chiefs because most of their fans are bandwagon fans as it is. But you know what? The true Broncos fans will stay true. Broncos country for life. And we appreciate, again, you guys being here with us. These shows are so much fun, getting to talk to you guys, getting to hear from other Broncos fans, and getting to talk about this great sport of football and the great things that come along with it. So appreciate you guys joining us. We'll get to just a couple more comments, and then I'll close out for the night, guys. Duran, thanks for joining us. He said, I would love to see Matthew Stafford as a Bronco. He can buy us 3 years, let Locke grow more. The thing is, at what point do you keep letting a young quarterback grow? At what point do you just cut him loose and throw him to the wolves? And I think Locke has proven he's going to be the quarterback of the future. So you might as well get him that experience. And I get your point. One, Stafford is, I think, a solid quarterback playing for a pretty crappy franchise. And I don't know what the price would even be to get him to the Broncos. But on top of that, I think we're at a point, especially in the injury-filled year, where, unfortunate reality, we might have 2 wins when he comes back. We might be facing a 2-4, 2-5 situation at that point. You're not going to sell the farm to bring in a different quarterback who's not going to provide necessarily that much more benefit than your quarterback of the future, who you're saying the quarterback of the future is going to be. So I think Locke is our guy, at least for the next couple of years. I don't see him going anywhere. I've been impressed with his ability. I've been impressed with his leadership. And that's not stuff you can find just anywhere around the league. So I expect to see Locke to be the main guy once he's back from this injury, both this year and moving forward. He needs the experience. At the end of the day, I think he's going to be great. But there's only so much growth you can do watching the game from the bench. Watching anything is not nearly as good as doing it. And so, if you want to cut him loose, then we must realize I'm guessing you're saying if you want to cut him loose, then you have to realize we want to win many games. So yeah, we won't win many games, and I think that's where we're at right now. I don't think the sad reality is I don't see us winning 12 games this year. I think heading into the season, I had us about 9-7, maybe 10-6, with a healthy team. Again, we've got one of the youngest teams, possibly the youngest team in the NFL this year. And so, it's going to be a rough year, with these injuries shaping up. We might be in for a long season. I hope I'm proven wrong, but again, when your top wide receiver goes down for the year, your top two defensive players are down for one for the year, one for multiple weeks. One of your top running backs, your top paid offensive lineman opted out of the season. You're making things really hard on yourself, no matter who's at quarterback at that point. So you're right. We might not win a ton of games this year. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I do think we still have a chance to make the playoffs as, the last team in. And I think we can do that with Locke. But I think, with Locke as our quarterback, with a healthy team, this is a dangerous team. So we'll see. I see that you're predicting now a 6-win team due to all the injuries. I agree with the injuries. Realistically, these injuries are, if they're not season ending, they can be lingering. And again, just because of the how many key players are down and out, we might only win 5 games this year. Again, the 49ers dealt with their injuries the year before they went to the Super Bowl. They won 4 games, and then the next year they were in the Super Bowl. So it could be a long season. Again, I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm sure a lot of the crew might have differing opinions during tomorrow night's show. Again, I'll be at 7:00. So make sure you join them there and continue in that discussion as well. Guys, appreciate you joining me tonight. Appreciate all your comments, your feedback. Again, lots of content coming to you. Please continue to check us out. Give us great ratings with our podcast on our page. Please share our page. We would really appreciate it if you would do that. Share our page with other people that that enjoy the Broncos. You can just enjoy talking football. We're trying to continue to grow our page, just so again these conversations can be more and more delightful with more and more fans across the board. So if you could share our content, that would be wonderful. We'd really appreciate that. Give us 5-star ratings on our podcast. You guys are great. I'm going to go ahead and sign off for the night. Again, don't worry. Bourbon, Broncos, and No BS is on tomorrow night. So make sure you join the crew for that discussion as well. They will get far more into in-depth analysis on the Steelers game and into what's coming up against the Bucs. So again, check them out. Join that conversation. You guys are wonderful. Appreciate you joining me tonight. And until next time, good night and go Broncos.